English Bhagavad Gita, the name of the chapter is Most Confidential Knowledge. Okay, so we know that Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. Okay, and we split this into three. Okay, 1 to 6, 7 to 12, 13 to 18. And we said that the main treasure of Bhagavad Gita is in the center. Okay, and now we are coming to the centermost chapters. Okay, so we are coming closer to the treasure. Okay, so here it's mentioned that this knowledge is the king of all knowledge, Raja Vidya, and it's most confidential. Why is this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita king of all knowledge? Let's understand that. Okay, any knowledge, if you see, maybe it's variable to the place. Like for example, I learned the laws, let's say VAT law, tax laws of UAE over here, may or may not be applicable if I go to India or US. Correct? So that means, or maybe let's say there are some driving laws which are applicable in UAE, the jaywalking law, different laws of the land, we say, restricted to a particular country. Now, when I move by place, it is no more applicable. That knowledge is redundant. It's no useless for me. So that is how material knowledge is. Okay, it is not. It doesn't remain constant if I change a place. Then, secondly, the knowledge could be restricted by time. Let's say I learned a particular knowledge. Okay, I attained some knowledge, and then after a few years or decades it's no more applicable. Like for example, when we were learning accountancy, like when back in those days, when the seniors whom we learned from, they were learning accountancy, they used to have this pen and paper and ledger and all that, and they used to draw the physical balance sheet and all that. Then came computers. Okay, and now comes AI. So you see that the knowledge becomes redundant. That's how material knowledge works. Okay, and then knowledge restricted to place, knowledge restricted to time, and knowledge restricted to field or an industry. Of course, we know that. Suppose somebody has studied a lot in architecture. Okay, so he will know a lot about the architectural knowledge. Somebody who has specialized in finance, or let's say medical, or let's say astrology, so the other person may not know about this kind of the other field. So this is how the knowledge is restricted. But spiritual knowledge, this knowledge which we are getting from Bhagavad Gita, it is the king of all knowledge because it is not restricted as per time, place, field. As we started, before we started the chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita, we said that this book is not a religious book. It is used by life coaches, by industrialists, by sportsmen, by businessmen. Yeah, it is applicable for everybody. It's like a human manual. Okay, it's applicable to every human being. And then we see that we just understood in the recap also that once we attain this knowledge, let's say we did 49%, from the next lifetime it will be carried forward 50%. It's not as per time and place that it will change. If you go anywhere, you can use this knowledge. It's not that in India you can read the Bhagavad Gita and then in America it's no more applicable. No, it's not like that. So this knowledge is called the king of all knowledge because of these reasons. And that is why today's code is king, King. Okay, where K stands for knowledge, I stands for inconceivable, N stands for non worshippers versus the worshippers, and G stands for glories of bhakti. For those taking notes, I repeat: K stands for knowledge, I inconceivable, N non worshippers versus worshippers, and G glories of bhakti. Okay, so again, this is one of the few chapters where it doesn't start with Arjuna asking a question, but Krishna is speaking all throughout this chapter. Okay, so this chapter doesn't begin with Shri Arjuna Uvacha, it begins with Shri Bhagwan Uvacha. Okay, and what is Krishna saying in the beginning of this chapter? He says that, my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Okay, so do you also want to be relieved of the miseries of material existence by gaining this knowledge? Yes, no? Okay. Can I have some interaction? Maybe unmute on the chat. Okay. So, if you want to get relief from the material, from the miseries of the material world, then let's go and deep dive into this chapter. Okay, so that's how the chapter begins. So, in this chapter, in shloka number 2, it's a very, very nice, important shloka where Krishna is now stating the characteristics of this knowledge, of this Rajavidya. What are the characteristics? He says, Rajavidya, Rajaguyam, Pavitram, Idamuttamam, Pratyaksham Avagam, Susukham Kartum Avyayam. What does it mean? What's the translation? The translation is that this knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets, which means confidential. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self realization, it is the perfection of religion. And not just that, it is everlasting, and to top it all, it is joyfully performed. Okay, so it is king of education that we saw. Why is it called a king? It is most secret of all secrets because we saw it's so rare. Only few can achieve it. We saw the example of the pamphlet book distribution. It is the purest knowledge. Why is the purest knowledge? Because it is coming directly from Krishna, and Krishna is the purest. He is the supreme personality of Godhead, and anything coming from him, anything in association, in relation to him, is pure. It gives direct perception of the self by realization. Most of the people who have understood, read, and tried to apply the Bhagavad Gita, and for us also, because it's been so many months that we are doing these classes, we see that whatever we are learning over here, it actually can be directly perceived, right? So that is why this knowledge gives direct perception of self by realization. And that is why it is the perfection of religion. It's not that you do something, you get something. It is asked, somebody asked you to do it in a certain way, so you follow the rituals. No. It is actually, you can see it, you can practically live it, and that is why it's the perfection of religion. And more than that, it is everlasting. It's not limited to time, and best of all, it is joyfully performed. And that is why when we didn't have the classes for a few weeks because of Kartik and Kirtan Rasa, people were texting like, hey, when are we starting, when are we starting? Why? Because this is joyfully performed. People are getting some kind of joy by performing this kind of a knowledge. Yeah, so this was the initial beginning, first section of this chapter, saying K stands for knowledge. Then I stands for inconceivable. The next few shlokas, 6 7 shlokas, Krishna is talking about his own inconceivable nature. So he is using a language like, I will give you an example. I'll read from the Bhagavad Gita itself, a few shlokas here and there. And you will see how confusing it is. It is inconceivable. It is very difficult to understand. Just to get a feel, I'll read it out. He says, by me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Okay. And yet, everything that is created does not rest in me. So confusing, right? All beings are me, I am not in them. Everything that is created does not rest in me. Like, what are you saying? And then going on further, he says, understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me, again in me. And at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. And having said all that, in the end, he says, I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. He's doing so much and he's saying, I'm neutral. So, to put it in simple words, in this section, Krishna begins to impart this knowledge of his inconceivable relationship with the universe and with all the living entities. It is inconceivable. We should not be able to understand that. That is only when we can call it inconceivable, right? But while this knowledge gives us an indication of the character and the greatness and capacity of Krishna, of God, it also exposes that our inability to understand such matters through logic and reason. So when we try to apply rational, we won't be able to understand this, and that is why it is inconceivable. So then how to understand? By developing a relationship with him. That is the hack. Okay, and then moving on to the section 3 of this chapter, where we said KING. N stands for non worshippers versus worshippers. So, in the next around 15 shlokas, he is explaining about the non worshippers and the worshippers of the Lord. Okay, and he is mentioning certain characteristics of these two. So he explains that although he has mentioned all these opulences, these inconceivable qualities of his personal form, there are still people who do not understand him or maybe misunderstand him. Why? Because Krishna appears in his human like form. So that is why some people think he is an ordinary human being. अरे वो भी तो खेल रहा था, माखन चोरी कर रहा था, ये कर रहा था, वो कर रहा था, so he, people don't think of him as a supreme personality of Godhead or him to be the God. People think he was just another ordinary human being. So that we are talking about the non worshippers first, so that they are misled. Then some people think that God manifests in innumerable forms. Let's say like the demigods, सभी भगवान है. Okay, and सभी सबको ही सबकी पूजा आराधना करनी चाहिए. So that way, then some people think God as the universe. Okay, and we have seen a lot of this in the recent days, that you should trust the universe, you should believe in the universe. So they are worshipping the cosmos to be the supreme object of worship. Okay, and then some people say that all paths lead to the same destination. Okay, so all these are basically the symptoms of a non worshipper. Because why? Or I would say indirect worshippers. Why? Because they are not worshipping Krishna or the Lord as a personality with whom you can develop a relationship. Okay, so why I call them indirect worshippers? Because even if you, let's say, worship the demigods, you worship the universe, you worship any form, in any form, when you're doing this worship, ultimately you are worshipping Krishna. Why? Because the demigods are also under the control of Krishna, they are serving Krishna. So obviously if you serve the demigod, so indirectly you are worshipping Krishna. If you are worshipping universe, you are again worshipping Krishna. Why? Because Krishna will show later on his universal form. So he is the universe, it's his energy. So again you are indirectly worshipping Krishna only. So that is why I don't call them non worshippers, I call them indirect worshippers. So then Krishna goes on to say who are the true worshippers, the direct worshippers, right? So he says that these are the people who are not deluded. They are Mahatmas. He calls them Mahatmas. Mahatmas means Mahatma, great souls. And why? Why they are not deluded? Why they are the Mahatmas? Because they are under the protection of the divine nature, of the internal energy of the Lord. And what do these people do? What they do? They are fully engaged in devotional service. Why? Because they know that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. So they are fully engaged in devotional service to Krishna. And how do that? How do they do that? So it's a very important shloka where Krishna says, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Translation: always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down to me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So, this is like a check if you are doing the correct worship or not. Are you always chanting glories of Krishna? Are you endeavoring with great determination कि यार आज मूड हुआ किया कल मूड हुआ नहीं किया? Is it like that? That's not great determination. You have to endeavor. There will be challenges, but still you have to endeavor with determination. Then third thing, what we have to do, bowing down before him. So are we always paying our obeisances in front of the altar? And then these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Two important words over here: perpetually and devotion. So it's not that we do it in irregular intervals. We do it perpetually, and most important is with devotion. We are not doing this, we are not chanting his glories or bowing down just because we have been asked to do that, but we are doing it with love. There's no force over here, because we said that Krishna is a person and we are developing a relationship with Krishna, and that relationship is of love. It cannot be of force. So this is a check if we are actually doing the correct worship or not. And then Krishna ends this section by saying the destination. He says the different worshippers will go to different destinations. Not everybody will go to the same destination. And here he mentions yanti deva vrata devan pitran yanti pitra vrataha bhutani yanti bhutejya yanti madhyajino pimam, which means that yanti deva vrata devan, those who worship the ancestor, no, those who worship the demigods, yanti deva. So those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Okay. Pitran yanti pitra vrata, those who worship the forefathers, the ancestors, they will go back where the ancestors are there right now. So they will go back and associate with the ancestors in their next life. Bhutani yanti bhutejya. Though some people they worship ghosts and spirits, right? The people, the tantrics, those who do black magic, etc. So what will happen to them? They will take their next birth amongst the ghosts and spirits. Bhutejya. Yanti mat yajino pimam. And those who worship me will live with me. So which means those who worship Krishna will live with Krishna. So this is how he ends the third section. And finally, King. G is glories of bhakti. So in the last part of this chapter, he is again glorifying bhakti. Okay, so Krishna has established that the personal form of God is the highest. Okay, and why? Why? Because with this personal form, you can develop a relation. You can exchange mellows, right? So for example, let's say somebody wants to get into a good university. Okay, then you need higher grades as compared to if you want to go to an average university, correct? Or let's say somebody who wants to buy a very big house, so he will need bigger funds. Okay, similarly, if you want to approach God in his most intimate and personal way, okay, in this relation, when you want to develop this relationship, an intimate relation, then what you will require? You will require a greater qualification than everybody else. And what is that qualification? Complete purity of consciousness, which means there is no selfish motivation. Everything that you do is for out of love towards him, love towards God. That is how you develop a complete purity of consciousness. There is nothing for me over here कि मुझे कुछ चाहिए. You know, I go to the temple because I want something, sukh sampatti ghar aave, kasht mite tan ka. No, this is not for me. It's out of love for him that I offer everything to him. And how do we achieve this purity of consciousness? Because we know we are not at this stage right now where we will do everything just out of love and affection for Krishna, right? Because we have this selfish nature in us that we also want something. So Krishna gives you a hack over here again. He is giving you the way how you can develop this purity of consciousness. And what is he saying? Whatever you do, okay, keep doing that. He's not saying do something different, okay, or quit what you're doing. Saying whatever you do, whatever you eat, and whatever you offer in charity or whatever, and whatever austerities you perform, do that as an offering to me. So basically, he's saying that whenever, whatever you are doing, you continue to do that, but just remember that you are doing this as an offering to me. So he's so kind, he doesn't want us to change something in our life. He's saying continue what you are doing, but just do that as an offering to me. Means you just remember that whatever you're doing is an offering to him. Okay, and then he ends the chapter by saying a very important shloka, which is man mana bhava mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru mam evaishyasi yuktevam atmanam mat parayanah. Translation: engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So basically, he is giving a crux of what is the meaning of Krishna consciousness. This is the most essential teaching of Bhagavad Gita. What is that? To always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna, but in devotion. Very important. Because Kamsa also always remembered Krishna and never forgot Krishna, right? But did he do that in devotion? No, he did that in enmity. So always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna with love and devotion. That is the essential teaching of Bhagavad Gita. So we will stop here. If we have any questions, comments, we will take that. You can free to unmute yourself or write on the chat, and we will take that. Meanwhile, we will just do a quick recap.